listening to Give God 90, where we're not afraid of the tough biblical questions, because we will dig through the language, the culture, and the history to find the truth revealed in the words of our Creator.
Hello, everyone. Hope you're enjoying your Thursday. I am now that I've had a trip to the chiropractor. I am being closely monitored and supervised.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Finally got a little rain this morning. Everything greened up some, so hopefully the heat wave will disperse shortly.
Nice.
Get back to some regular, normal temperatures. If you haven't been to GiveGod90.com lately, you might want to check that out. It's been updated. It reflects all the new, improved, good stuff that's going on. Don't forget, the books are out there in just about every format available. They're there for you to read, study through, and I do encourage people when they read these books to, keep a Bible handy. You're going to need it. Okay. What else is going on? Is there any other advertisements I need to make? No? Okay. Yes. Oh, I know what I should say, too. If you like what you hear, don't be afraid of the share buttons. We're on just about every podcast platform there is out there. So it makes it easier for other people to find us, kind of boosts us up in their analytics and all that good stuff.
Just ring the bells.
Do all the things. And it doesn't cost you anything. Doesn't really give anything to us either, but it just makes it easier for people to find us. Because every time you do that, it gets, whatever platform you're listening on, it says, oh, somebody's interested in this. Maybe other people are too. So do all the good stuff. When I was putting this together, what I want to talk about tonight, it didn't really start to sound like I wanted it to sound. Let's put it that way. Because the only way I could think to do it was to almost make it sound a little bit political at first. But don't worry, it's really not. I'm using it as an example. And it's worldwide, not specific. So don't be too afraid of it. When I was thinking that, the world today, and I hear this all the time, things have gotten backwards. It's just been reversed. It makes you think of that Isaiah 5:20 verse, right? Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. When we interact with other people, do we cause them to think the same thing about us? We may think that we are attempting to promote God or the Creator or something that we think we're presenting, but are we? It's something to think about, because sometimes if you don't always get it right, it kind of leaves a bad taste in people's mouths. Generally speaking, and I'm painting a broad brush when I say this, we don't expect the best from other people any longer. And it's quite a change from just a few years ago, when people really tried to offer their best, either their best work or their best study in school, being really good friends, right? People always put their best foot forward, so to speak. Students would study hard in school, and workers would work hard, do the best job they could. It's been a while since we've had a national ruler in just about any nation around the world. And it seems like they've always had a reputation for being less than honest. Throughout history, we read about kings and queens who lived extravagantly, and their subjects lived in poverty. We read about other leaders who thought they were better than those that they were responsible for. Because when you're a world leader, you're responsible for the people in your nation. That's something that world leaders today don't think about. They some of them made some really, really bad choices too, right? And it ended entire civilizations. Again, in general, we have gained a distrust for the people who are responsible for the direction of nations. Not just in the United States, but all around the world. If you read some of the papers from around the world, some of the newspapers from around the world, it's amazing how many people have a distrust for their leaders in their countries. Like I said, I don't want it to sound political. I'm using this as an example of how mistrust has a tendency to trickle down in such a way that it affects the way we interact with people, the people around us, the people close to us. Mankind has developed a type of prejudice. And that's maybe not the best word, but it is the best word, because we often think about prejudice as being racial. But the prejudice I'm talking about isn't based on race. It's not based on religion, because it seems many of us will prejudge other people based on, well, is the other person honest? Is the other person wanting something from me that I can't give? Do they expect something that I can't give them? And that prejudice works both ways, right? Which is why I said when we are presenting our Creator to other people, are we doing it in a way that these folks that we may be speaking to aren't looking at us like we have three eyes? You know what I mean? Am I making sense with that? Okay. As long as you think I'm making sense, everybody else will think so too. These prejudices that we have adopted get in the way of our relationships, the way we interact with each other, friends, family, the way we see our local leaders, our national leaders, our world leaders. The joke, how do you know if a politician's lying? It's when his lips are moving. That says a lot about the way we view people, right? So it's kind of easy to understand how these prejudices came about and why they came about. They came about as from a distrust of others. And there's other contributing factors, right? Think about a worker who doesn't receive a fair wage for their skills. It's going to affect their work performance, which in turn is going to affect the way people outside of that workforce view not only that worker, but the workers around them, and often the company itself. And if, like a CEO of a major corporation is caught doing something, well, it gives the entire company and the entire workforce a bad reputation. Children who had at one time a very strong desire to perform their best in any activity, whether it's academic or sport related, they are far less willing to offer their best the next time when everybody receives the same exact trophy, no matter if they tried hard or if they were just a warm body that happened to be at the event. Lack of incentive results in lack of performance. It's that simple. let's get a little more personal with it. Think about being in a relationship where the other person never recognizes anything you might do to try and make them happy. Now, I will admit, sometimes I'm guilty, right?
Sometimes.
Okay. So I'm not perfect, never tried, well, yeah, I do try to be sometimes, but never promoted myself as perfect. Myra works very, very hard doing things for me, and I know it might seem to her like, well, I just expect it. And kind of I do. But I expect it with appreciation, even though I don't always show it. There's my confession for the evening. What I want to make a point of is that overall, people don't expect the best from each other anymore, right? And part of this comes from a developed fear of offending others instead of expecting others to offer their best. And we just expect less. Why? We expect dishonesty from leaders in our government. We expect doctors and lawyers and judges sometimes to be less than professional. We expect teachers and professors to advance children without them completely understanding the things that they should have been taught, the things that they should have learned. We expect less from others, and then we use the excuse, oh, they're only human. Remember, an excuse is a reason for failure. It's our failure when we don't demand the best from someone else. We don't desire their best effort. We don't desire their greatest input. That's our failure for not expecting the best they have to offer. And part of it has to be, in my opinion, which doesn't mean anything, that we expect less because we don't want to offend them. Well, you know, I've said this before. There are some people who need to be offended. But they need to be offended in the proper way. And here's where things get tricky. Well, not really, but it just sounds backwards from the world we live in today. There's some verses in the Bible that we should probably look at right now.
As iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens the countenance of a friend. Proverbs 27, verse 17. Two are better than one, because they have a good return for their labor. For if one falls down, his companion can lift him up, but pity the one who falls without another to help him up. Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. See to it, brothers, that none of you has a wicked heart of unbelief that turns away from the living God, but encourage one another every day while it is called today, so that not one of you may be hardened by the deceitfulness of sin. Hebrews chapter 3, verses 12 and 13. Therefore confess your sins to one another and pray for one another so you can be healed. The effective prayer of a righteous man can accomplish much. James chapter 5, verse 16.
You know, the proverb verse is often repeated only in part. Maybe you've heard it used. Iron sharpens iron, right? Iron sharpens iron when it's done properly. But if you try to use iron to sharpen iron the wrong way, it dulls and wears it away instead of becoming sharp. You know, you've got to hold that iron correctly. You've got to have the proper angles for iron to sharpen iron. More on that in a moment. When we think about holding each other accountable, and that's really what we're looking at, right? when we expect someone to offer their best, we're holding them accountable when they give us less. Or we should be. I don't know how many times growing up I heard, is that the best you can do? Well, sometimes it is. And I'm not bragging here. I'm using this as an example for this. When I was inducted into the National Honor Society, at that time, parents were invited to the ceremony. It was a big deal, right? When I got home, my mother looked at me and said, is that the best you can do? And I said, well, yeah, it kind of is, right? Because at that point in my scholastic work, that was the best you could do. So, when we attempt to hold each other accountable, we have to do it properly, and we have to do so in such a way that we're not dulling or compromising the other person. There's criticism, there's constructive criticism, and then there's just simply criticizing someone. Expecting the best from others should be normal, but it isn't anymore, because we have actually become trained to accept less. Over the years, I have had the opportunity to train a lot of animals, horses and dogs mainly, and I can say I never expected anything less than the best they had to offer. That doesn't mean that some were not more difficult to get the best from. Some learned faster than others, and some, let's just say they just weren't that great to start with, okay? Kind of like people. But I went into that each and every situation expecting the best from each of them. And each of them had a different best to give. Now, one little horse in particular surprised me. It was a little gelding. Because of some health issues, he only had one eye. But that little horse was willing to give everything he had to offer. And when I was done with my training from him, most people didn't realize he only had one eye. And I'm not bragging about me training him. I'm bragging on that little horse for having so much heart, it was easy to teach him. It was easy to bring out his best. Are there going to be people who disappoint us? Absolutely. Some are going to reject even our best and most sincere desire to sharpen them. But when you use the correct method, right, when you hold that iron properly, when you get the right angle, iron sharpens iron. People lift each other up. People who hold each other accountable in the proper way have the ability to raise each other up. Now, some people may reject that. They may be dulled. But think about it. If they're dulled when you're holding that iron correctly and you're doing all the things properly, you will be the one who becomes more sharp. Because that's the way it sometimes works. If you don't hold that iron just right, and one piece is a little softer, one piece it maybe isn't forged properly, then that's the piece that will become dull instead of becoming sharp. We actually deserve to expect the best from each other for one major reason. We are made in the image of our Creator. And because we're made in the image of our Creator, and He always offers His best, we should be willing to offer our best as well. When someone needs to be sharpened, we should be we should expect, I should say, to be the one holding us accountable. We need to hold ourselves accountable to do so with constructive criticism and not to simply criticize. Solomon writes, encourage one another every day while it's still called today. Don't put it off. And we do that so that not one of you may be hardened to the deceitfulness of sin. If you look at the letters to the 7 churches in Revelation, they're filled with criticism. But among most of those letters, there are words of encouragement as well. When we read these letters, we often tend to focus on the negatives while we overlook the positives. Something we should be doing is getting better at focusing on the positive aspects of the people around us, because we should expect the best from the people around us. There's a concept I used when training horses, dogs, and other animals. You make the right thing easy and you make the wrong thing difficult. You know, if you think about it, isn't that what the Creator's doing with us? You know, if we listen to His voice and we obey His commands, our lives seem to improve. But when we reject His words, when we go our own way, how much trouble do we get ourselves into? It gets tough, right? Because He is the master of making the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. And yes, I do know that there are some people out there in the world who seem to thrive without Him. But look a little deeper. What have they done to gain their reward on this earth? Now, if you listen to the last podcast, you're going to have a pretty good idea of what they may have done to get where they are right now. You know, because we talked about certain things like the crossroad demons and that kind of thing, you know, making the deal with the devil, right? If you haven't heard it, you might want to go back and listen to it. People aren't perfect. And you're going to find some who will disappoint you, but your Creator will never disappoint you. We can always expect Him to offer us His best, and He expects us to offer our best as well. Not just between mankind and the Almighty, but when we interact with others. You know, he's sitting on His throne saying, I'm doing the best job I can to make sure everything comes out the way I want it to come out. What are we saying? Are we offering our best? Or, oh, it's the least I could do. Right? How many times have you heard that? Oh, it's the least I could do. Well, why didn't you do the most you could do? Are you hearing what I'm saying here? If you really want to be interactive with others and have that respect, have that name that Solomon talks about in Proverbs, you know, the good name is better than silver and gold. You offer your best. You don't simply do the least you can do. So maybe it's time we stopped offering reasons for failure, lame excuses. Oh, he's only human. Well, no, you're not only human. You're made in the image of your Creator. And that means that we should expect the best from others and the best from ourselves. We expect the best from each other, offering encouragement while making the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult. We need to learn how to hold that iron at the proper angle so it It sharpens each other and doesn't wear anything away. And we need to encourage each other every day. Don't put it off, so that you don't become hardened due to the deceitfulness of sin. Hopefully, this wasn't a waste of your time. Hopefully, you're questioning yourself. Am I really doing my best? Could I have done that better? Will I remember to do it better the next time? You know, we look at antique furniture and we see the craftsmanship that goes into it. Well, how many pieces of furniture do we see that maybe didn't stand the test of time because the craftsman didn't do his best work? Will your work stand the test of time? Will the things you do stand the test of time? Will the name that you make for yourself be worth more than silver and gold? Because it's all tied together and it all works the same way. So, until Monday. And I will say that next Thursday is a major holiday in the United States, so we probably will not be here live. Independence Day is still a pretty important holiday in the United States so far.
Yes, it is.
So until Monday, we wish you many, many blessings, everyone.
Many blessings, everyone.